all very excited and looking forward to this day to start the orientation for all of you that have expressed an interest in being volunteers for this initiative. So one of the things that we're doing in order for the people that eventually come on board as volunteers and are not able to join us via Zoom either today or tomorrow, we want to record the session. So at the bottom of your screen where you have the icons, there's one that says reactions. If you don't mind giving us a thumbs up if you're all okay if we record this session. Okay, great. Thank you. All right. And as you can see, as part of the recording, it's just going to be like very small pictures of the person that's speaking. Go ahead.
So may I ask you to speak closer to your microphone? And a little
sure.
More,
is that better?
Yes, much better. A little more distinctly, much better.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect.
Well, again, great. Welcome. Welcome, and thank you for taking the time to be part of this orientation. I think we have prepared a good orientation. We want to make it sweet, concise, to the point. So we're hoping to last no longer than half an hour. So we'll go ahead and start with the next slide. So thank you for being part of this initiative of connecting people. With this initiative, given the circumstance that we're all in with COVID, we have found, prior to launching the full force volunteer working, helping us do the calls, we did a pilot. The core team did a pilot where we made several calls so that we could get an idea of how, it all worked and make sure we prepared you well for when you started making the calls. So we're excited to share everything, the information that you need and really equip you with everything that you need so that you can do the care calls yourself. But before I continue, I would like to make sure all the members of the core team introduce themselves and wave their hands. And then we're also going to have a member from the Aging and Long-Term Services Department, Ms. Dana Padilla, who's going to also join us and kind of briefly talk about how this initiative came about. So why don't I'm going to hand it over to the core team. If you could just wave one by one your hands, that way they'll know who you are and give us your name. And then you'll be hearing from them throughout the orientation.
I'm Kelly Camden.
Hi, I'm Yvette Ramirez-Ammerman, Office of Interprofessional Education.
Hi, I'm Yadira Agüero from UNN Comprehensive Cancer Center.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maggie June. I'm with the Office for Community Health. Hi.
Great. And I think we also have Susie. I don't know if, or maybe you're on the call. Oh, right now we're doing the introduction of the core members.
Oh, the core members.
Yeah,
all right.
for the initiative, okay? And if not, I'll hand it over if there's anybody else missing. No? I'll hand it over to Dana Padilla to tell us how this initiative came about, right? In terms of the partnership between UNM and the Aging and Long-Term Services.
Thank you, Francisco. I love your background. Are you actually out in the mountains or is that a picture?
It's a background, it's a picture, yeah.
I was gonna say, because it reminds me of like a newscast. That's awesome.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm Dana Padilla. I'm with the Aging and Disability Resource Center with Aging and Long-Term Services Department. And basically how this came about is we typically employ 10 options counselors who basically handle the calls that come into the resource center, and they can be just about anything, from a phone number to the post office to whether or not there are Meals on Wheels in Mora County and that kind of thing. And so we also maintain the registry for the the Centennial Care Waiver for Medical Assistance Division, HSD, and ISD. And then in the course of doing that, we've got over 18,000 registrants, and we don't have the manpower to contact each of them and update their information and everything. And typically what we do is when we register somebody for the waiver, we give them you know, like when we're talking to them on the phone, we tell them you've been registered for the waiver, you'll receive a registration letter. If anything changes, please give us a call. Otherwise, give us a call every 6 months just to update your information. And, you know, generally people forget about it and they don't give us a call. So what we're looking at is we decided to see if you guys were interested in helping us contact those folks. Right now we're doing people, I believe it was the last 2 years, and we're going to scoot that up to the last year. So that's about it. I mean, I think it's very important simply because a lot of these folks just kind of drop off, or, you know, they fade away or whatever, and it's reassuring to them to get a call. It's also helpful to them for social interaction, and to show them that somebody still cares. And then, you know, for us, it's that plus getting the information updated in our system so that we can maybe see if they're even at the point where we can do something for them now instead of them remaining on the list. That's pretty much it, I think.
Great. Thank you very much, Dana, for that
You're welcome.
introduction of how we all came together. So we are very excited. And from the pilot calls, you know, our experience has been very humbling, just being able to connect with people and being able to talk with them and get the assessment. So you'll get a full run through in terms of what we're looking for and how you're going to be able to help us. So if you don't mind, Maggie, if you project the PowerPoint again. There we go. Yeah, so the way we're organized is we have a core team, which are the members that already spoke and waved hi. And then we are gonna have UNM leads. So we're gonna identify people that are gonna help us as UNM leads to kind of administer the list of calls that we need to make and then disseminate them to the different volunteers. And we'll be working very closely with the UNM leads. So that's the way we're structured. In terms of the volunteer requirements, as you saw in the registration form that you did electronically, you must attend a brief online training, which is this one, or if not, do the recorded version. The phone calls are going to be to older adults, right? And adults around the state. And the times that we specified is between 8:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. Monday through Saturday. We don't want to make calls on Sundays, right? It's important for you to communicate with your UNM team lead regarding assignments, questions, or concerns. So you will be given a UNM team lead, and so you'll have their name and email address. That way, if you have any questions or concerns, you can connect right away with her or him. Also, volunteers must have the ability to use a personal cell phone, and we'll show you how to use the Google Voice so that you can use your personal cell phones and you don't have to have your own number, you know, with the calls that you're making. There's going to be a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet that Kelly will tell you more about that, how to complete it, and then when you're done with it, who to give it to. And finally, the online survey, it's through SurveyMonkey, so you're going to be able to enter the information electronically and then hit submit, and you'll be able to submit that information. We're really excited about this, so I'm going to pass it over now to my colleague, Yvette.
Hi. Here's just a little bit of levity about the situation that we're in. It's incredibly important, the work that we're doing. Social isolation and loneliness are a leading cause of death in the United States today. It's called, and it's sort of a new description, diseases of despair. And so we know that seniors are especially vulnerable in New Mexico, particularly in the rural areas. They've had family members move away to get jobs. There's lack of transportation. And of course, there's chronic loss of sight and hearing, which further isolates these folks. We know also that as the pandemic continues, more and more resources will be devoted to the people that are hospitalized. So our care calls are something that public health people would say are an upstream solution to some of this loneliness and social isolation. And that just simply means that if we get in contact with people and we're able to sign them up for services earlier rather than later, then we're going to be able to catch people before they get severely ill. And so that's part of what we're hoping to do. And we'll take the next slide, Maggie, please. Yeah. So what does the evidence say? Not only everything I just talked about, but isolation and loneliness also are linked to risky behaviors: smoking, poor eating habits, becoming inactive, not exercising, and all of those are leading to cognitive decline. There's a recent report about disparities, and it's mandated by Congress, and it basically said that, in particular to us in New Mexico, African Americans and Latinos receive lower quality healthcare in 40% of the indicators measured. American Indians or First Nation folks, only 1/3 of the indicators. And then the last one is that, oh, for some reason it's not showing up. Okay. 11 million people, or 20%, age 65 and older, lived alone at the time of the last census. So as people age, their likelihood of living alone increases. And there is a gender difference. So not only do we already know that there's a race divide and who's getting sick and who's being taken care of, but we also know it's gendered. And most elderly men are still married, and most elderly women are widows. And I'm going to go ahead and pass that on to Maggie, I believe.
Great. Hi, everyone, again, and thank you, Yvette. I am going to go through this section of the orientation that will basically talk about the project guide. And this is something that was emailed to you as the volunteer packet, but just so that you know what it contains. So for the tools, I'll share with you guys everything that you'll need to get started with your care calls. For the calling procedures, we will talk about some of the details, and Francisco already mentioned a couple of them. And then also we'll go over the FAQs, and that contains some important information for you when you're making your calls. So for part of the care call tools is that we recommend that you use a Google Voice phone number. Google Voice, and maybe a lot of you guys aren't familiar with it. I know I wasn't familiar with it like before a month ago, but Google Voice has an app that is free to use, and you actually choose your own phone number. And the reason why this is a benefit is because it keeps your phone number private as you begin making the care calls. So there's a download on an app to your phone, or it can be to your laptop or your computer. And you can make the phone calls from your laptop or computer. And in the volunteer packet, there are a couple of links with instructions for how to do that. So while we recommend this, not everybody will be using this. And for those people that don't want to use the Google Voice, you can also use *67 before you dial the phone number. And when you use *67, the recipient will get a private number on the printout of their phone. Next is what you need to know before you call. So we're hoping that before you embark on these phone calls, think about a quiet place where you'll be free from distractions. Think about that you are a liaison, a community member that is maybe bringing a sun ray of hope to people who may have been waiting for a return phone call for some time. Also, be aware that you might encounter some difficult situations. You might hear about hardships. You might hear that a loved one recently is deceased who you're trying to contact. And So just keep these things in mind before you make your phone call. Next, I want to go over documents that you'll need in front of you when you're making your phone call. And I'll share with you the way that I set up my screen, but basically there's 3 things that you'll need. First of all, we'll be using the SurveyMonkey, which is the online survey tool. This will have your script. And so we've hopefully made it easy so that you can click on the SurveyMonkey, and it'll automatically open. And as you make these phone calls, you'll just follow the SurveyMonkey that will lead you from question to question. Next to have in front of you is the volunteer packet, which you guys should have all received on email. So inside the volunteer packet is a script for the voicemail, and you'll need the voicemail for whenever you don't reach the person, and there will be a script there to use. And from our pilot project, where this group that you're hearing from today shared the first 100 calls and reached out to the first 100 to know what the encounters would be like, we're kind of estimating that you'll get in touch with probably about 30% of the people who are on your list. So don't get discouraged. You'll get a lot of wrong numbers, a lot of voicemails. So you want to have your voicemail and your volunteer packet in front of you. And part of the volunteer packet also has the reason why we're calling. And some people will ask you that. So the reason why you're calling is to update the community members' Centennial Care waiver information. And that's part of the documentation you had emailed. Last is the care logs, and Kelly will talk about those next. But the care logs are the listing of the people who you will be contacting. So we've talked about the Excel spreadsheet, which is the care log. We've talked about the
May I
online.
interrupt for just a second?
Sure. And
David Oberg, I have not received a volunteer packet by email. And I checked the email just before I logged in here, and I just saw a message pop up. So just so you know, some of us haven't gotten that information.
Thank you for mentioning that, David. I was just putting a message in the chat box that we'll be sending that information out again. So if anyone has not received the project guide yet, just watch for our email.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. Thanks for the question. And so we've talked about the Excel spreadsheet, the SurveyMonkey, the voicemail script, and the FAQs. So next, I wanted to show you the way that I set up my screen to do these calls. And just because it's you know, different documents and online survey tool, so what you'll see on the upper left-hand side is, this is the SurveyMonkey. So you'll see the New Mexico Aging and Long-Term Services Department logo on the upper left-hand side. And then the survey starts. The first thing that you do is put in the community member's identifier number. So you're going to get that from what you're seeing across the bottom of the screen, which is the call log. This was my actual call log, so I grayed out some of the identifier information, like the name and the phone number and the address. Next, number 2 is the name of the volunteer. So you copy and paste those 2 things in, number 1 and number 2, before you dial. Then on the upper right-hand side of my screen is the volunteer packet. with the portion of the volunteer packet that talks about, or that has the voicemail script. And you'll see the FAQs are towards the bottom, and that has the other information about the Centennial Care Waiver Program. And that's just in case you're asked these things. And at this point, I would like to pass the presentation on to Kelly. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Maggie. Okay, there we go. So we just wanted to talk a little bit about what is the care log. And that is a spreadsheet that will have all of the community members' information on it, so that you are able to make the calls. It includes their ID number that Maggie was saying you need to enter into the SurveyMonkey, and their name and contact information. So we'll use that call log initially to make a phone call, and you'll be receiving that information from your team lead. That'll have like your first batch of phone calls to make. And as you make the calls, we'd like you to fill in the date and time of the call and then the outcome. So as Maggie had mentioned, there may be a lot of people that you're not able to speak with. And we just want to note that we did attempt to contact them and what the outcome was. So maybe the number has been disconnected, or the person has passed away, or you left a message, and we want to know all those things. So there's a place to note that in the call log sheet. If the person has passed away, please express your condolences, and obviously we'll just discontinue the update because we don't need to. We'll just note that in the spreadsheet, but we are not going to continue with the survey at that point. So we'd like you to fill out the call sheet after each call. And while the information is still fresh in your mind, and I think we can go to the next slide. We would like to attempt to reach each client or community member twice. So if you call the first time and you're not able to reach them, please give them a call again. And you can leave a voicemail message with the phone number for the Aging and Disability Resource Center, which is listed here. And we also have that information in the voicemail script so that it's easy for you to find when you're on the phone. And when you complete the batch of phone calls, we'd like you to turn your call log in to the team member, your UNM team lead, rather. So sometimes we may come across people who have an urgent need, and we would like everyone to flag those calls and make a note on the spreadsheet what the concern is. Maybe they don't have food, or there's some kind of really serious situation happening in their home, and we would like to put that in the call sheet and call UNM team lead and let them know right away if there is an urgent concern. So that way we can pass that information on to Aging and Long-Term Services for follow-up. So once you have completed all of the calls on your list, we'll have another list of community members ready for you to call. So the team lead will follow up with you for your next assignment. And I see David has a question.
There we go. One of the things that I work with medical students on communication skills, and one of the things I urge them to do, particularly the older the client or the patient, is to speak slowly, because hearing, by the time you get to the next word, one word hasn't completed its meaning oftentimes if they're hard of hearing. Speak slowly, distinctly, and if there are numbers involved, like that 1-800, speak extremely slowly, very articulately, and say it twice. Otherwise, it really is lost.
Well, thank you for those tips. We also have a video of like a mock phone call to a client
Okay.
for training purposes that everyone on our team and all the volunteers will be able to access as an example of a phone call where we have you know, someone going through the entire survey and script. And just so you know, some of the questions may have been updated since the time that we made that video, but it's something that we can all refer to as an example for how to conduct the calls.
Thank you. It happens with students, particularly when they're nervous. They think they're speaking slowly and they're not.
Yes,
So-
thank you for those tips. And there's a list of tips within the packet too for the
Great.
college review.
It sounds like everything's covered. Sorry to have interrupted.
Callie, there is a question for you in the chat. Do you have a certain time frame to complete the calls, or just as we are able to get them done?
Well, Francisco, would you like to field that question?
Sure. So definitely, you know, we're anticipating starting maybe with 10 calls per volunteer, just so that you can get a taste of how it works and how much time it takes. So we don't have a specific time frame, but the sooner you can get them done, the better. Once you're done with your list of calls, feel free to contact your UNM team lead so that you can get more if you're interested in continuing helping us with the calls. Thank you, Kelly.
And I think we're about ready for questions. If you're on this call and you actually didn't fill out the form, the volunteer form, which has the confidentiality clause as well as codes of conduct, you can stick it in the chat and we'll make sure to pop that out to you. And this last slide is our core team and their contact information. You'll be assigned a core team member when we send you the packet, the volunteer packet with the 10 people you will be contacting. You'll have a core team member's name and email and phone number, so that if you do come up with a red flag or you have any questions, you can contact us directly. Francisco, I think I'll
Thank
hand
you,
it over
Yvette.
to you to wrap up.
Yes, and now we're at the session of question and answers. There is a question, I think I saw a question on the chat asking if we were going to have this presentation via email. So we are recording this Zoom, and we're going to be recording the second Zoom connection. So you will have access if you want to review some of this information. The packet is, you know, we have a dynamic team that has put the packet together. So there's a lot of your questions that you may have. The answers are within your packet, but we'd be happy to answer any questions right now. And I think I do see another question. How are you selecting the team leads, and are they already selected? Okay, that's a good question. As you know, this is a volunteer project, so we greatly, greatly appreciate your time, your talent, and your interests. So one of the things that we'll be identifying is people that want to become team leads. So we already have secured 3, and we could probably benefit from 3 more. So if you're up, willing, and ready for this kind of a task, please let us know, and we will contact you directly. That way we can meet with you and do a short orientation so that you can become a team lead, a UNM team lead. Any other questions? So there's another question, will the Google phone number have an ID? So the way that it works, when you get a Google phone number, you get to select your number. They give you options when you go on the app. So the number that you select, it's going to be a 505 number. So when the person that receives your call, what they're going to see on the screen is they're going to see a 505 number. So as a tip, make sure that when you get your Google Voice number, you write it down and remember it, okay? That way you'll know what's your Google Voice number. So that's what will appear on the screen of the person, of the recipient. It'll be that 505 number, which is your Google number, not your actual cell phone number. Anything else? Well, as we all said, from the beginning, we wanted to make it nice, short, and sweet, and hopefully with all the information that you need to start making your calls. What we're anticipating is getting the list of calls from aging and long-term services, and then meeting as a core team, divide the calls with UNM leads that we have, and then send out the information to all the volunteers so that they can start making the calls. It's also going to include the packet, as we mentioned earlier. Everybody's going to receive the packet electronically. The nice thing about the packet, there's a table of contents with hyperlinks, so that if you have a specific question, you just click on the link and it'll take you to that section of the packet. Anything else, team, that before we conclude? No?
Thank you, Francisco. I think that you covered it well. And just to mention, as far as the Google Voice phone number is, you can always find it within the app. So, because it is a different number. So when you register, when you download the app, you get to select whatever number you want. You'll see a list of possible phone numbers, and then that actually becomes your Google phone number.
Thank you, Maggie. Dana, anything else that you would like to add from aging and long-term services?
Sorry, I muted myself because I thought I was going to sneeze. No, I think the only thing that I have to add is that maybe just the importance of the registrant number, the unique ID, just because that's how I update the information on the other side. And then that I am still going through the list that I will send to you, but I should have them to you this week.
Great, thank you. Well, if there's no more questions, we want to thank you so much for joining us. We really look forward to your help, and collectively you get all these calls out and connect with people, and hopefully eventually connect them to the services that they need. Thank you all.
Thanks,
Have a
everyone.
Thank you.
Look forward to working with you. Thanks.
Thanks for
Great.
joining, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Stay
Nice afternoon.
And don't forget to log out instead of shutting your window. I believe on the lower right-hand side, there's a button that says leave meeting.
Yes, and the core team will stay on, right? We're all still planning to continue.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.